So I was sitting here again, and I attempted a video the other day, and my sound didn't turn out right. There was something wrong with it. So kind of sat back, watched some videos, relaxed, and decided to come back to it today. And here we are starting in Oklahoma again. If you watch my last video on Ramblings of a Mad Lamb, this is going to be kind of a part two. I think I'm going to do something different and maybe dive into a little bit of the ancient cultures and things along the west coast here, Peru, and all of those, the Paracas people, and then look at the ruins in these areas. I was watching some videos from Brian Forrester today, just kind of while I was piddling around on the computer, looking at the map, playing around, doing some other things, and he was talking about Paracas, Peru, and of course all the other places in the DNA of the peoples of Peru, and how it comes from a specific, haplogroup originating in these areas. And they're 2,000-year-old mummies, and they just don't look like people. If you guys haven't looked at them, look at to Brian Forrester. It's very interesting, all the things he does. But one thing that caught me today was he was talking about some of the pyramids here in Egypt, and how some of them, a lot of them, have cataclysmic damage and burning. And he talks of solar flares. The light from the sun alone at light speed takes 8 minutes to get here. Solar flares I knew do quite large, but I'm not convinced they come to Earth. But what I am convinced comes to Earth is, large meteors and comets, and we get hit, and the Earth bears the scars of massive impacts that we can't tell how old. I mean, when you look at it and you see, flung and melted rock that looks like just mud that's embedded itself to the sea floor, welded to the seafloor. In some areas, are popped up, but you can see just the scars throughout the world here. And he was talking about Abu Rawash here in Egypt, and it's a pyramid complex that seems to be blown apart, with massive statues and things in the area and blown apart. There's so many interesting things. I'm over here on the other screen kind of trying to find a picture, a couple good ones. If you just type in a Google search Abu Rawash, you see, it's blown apart, destroyed, washed away, signs of aging, and you kind of take a look at everything and you see evidence of massive cataclysmic floods. And I don't know exactly when all of them happened, but a lot of this looks like it happened all at once. And if the world was shaking and the waters were receding, you would see vibrations like we do in the dunes. This isn't caused by winds over thousands of years. This is caused by massive earthquakes as the water recedes and the sand settles. Let's see what we can get in some details in these areas. It usually comes in a little more clearly. These are some thin areas of recessing waters. But you're looking at giant sand dunes all through these areas that are just straight, long lines. And they ripple like vibrations on a pond. As the world shakes and the waters recede, you can imagine these are the patterns you would see. These look like, somebody painted this and maybe threw some paint at something and just while it was shaking and vibrating as it flowed. I mean, I think the world was shaking from the impacts, and pyramids were destroyed, and massive structures were knocked over and toppled. And you have, let's go over here real quick. You have destroyed ancient Egyptian statues. There we go. We'll just take a look at some of them. I'm not going to show anybody else's stuff, but you have giant. Where's the giant ones? That's what I want to see. Broken and melted. Look at some of Brian Forrester's stuff. There's Strangest Ancient Pyramid in the World, Abu Rawash in Egypt by Brian Forrester. It's this video right here. It's very interesting, and as you go through and you look at this pyramid, I mean, you see evidence of ancient cataclysm. I mean, look at melted stone and stone falling apart, where you see high heat damage, and you see some good stone. You see just strange things. I saw in interesting areas throughout here. It's easier just to watch the video, but it's high heat. I mean, in melted stone. And when you look at these ancient cataclysms, and my idea here about the impacts here, you can imagine, I mean, something that big blowing out big holes and big chunks and blowing fireballs and land hurling forth molten rock that splatters against the earth, and the earth cracks and magma seeps forth to create chains of islands. And you look here, and this is a lot of stone, but look at the strange shape of it. I mean, I don't know why I can't get in closer than that on Google Earth. It usually gives me better resolution. Let's get it out of 3D and go to 2D maybe? No, I don't know. But look at it. Look at what that looks like. If that was extremely hot from massive, massive, massive fireballs being hurled around the world, we can't even imagine the heat would it take. But imagine that was just molten stone and the world shaking. What would it look like? What would that solidify as? I kind of think it would look like this. And then as it was cooled quickly by the melting waters of, you know, the northern ice cap from those, I mean, imagine how fast that ice would melt and cool these areas to solidify into these strange structures that you see through, you know, Nevada, and the broken stones and the shattered earth throughout these areas. Let's see if we can get this to get a little better views. I mean, look at this. Does it not look like maybe vibrations? And yeah, that's water running through, and I think that's the cooling process, and it looks like it was washed down and kind of melted and dripping land as it vibrated. But it's easier to see that stuff all through here. Imagine those giant stones. Let's find one. It's pieces of earth. There's one right there. Let's measure that. Okay. Where'd we go? I took my eyes off the spot. Here we go. There looks like a potential spot. That's quite large. And imagine the size and the weight of what something like that would be, shaking and vibrating. What would it look like if the whole world was shaking with large, large stones like this right there? Look at that. You can almost see the path of them, and these are paths of the world shaking, and that's why such large structures moved and gouged the earth and put these permanent scars on the ocean floor that's still buried. We can see, but yet it's buried under thousands of feet of sediment that's settled over the years. You know, I mean, what is that? Why do we see from one direction multiple lines going in multiple directions? It's very interesting. The weight, is that the weight of the ice cap pushing down and forcing that blast wave away? Is that where the blast wave met the ice, and then finally the ice gave way and blew back, caused secondary impacts all the way around the world, maybe blowing chunks of the world around the world? You know, obviously hitting that hard, it's blew stuff into orbit. You can imagine, though, if this was just a big crater here because we got hit so hard that it cracked the Earth and blew this whole area out, all the world's water would want to come from one side to fill that hole. And you would get a giant drain with all the land from all this water churning this land up and creating these Himalayan mountains and Mount Everest all the way through here. And it's the cresting of a wave. It's pushing of all the world's water. I mean, how much does the world's water weigh? It's heavy. Oops. I'm not learning how to type today. Okay. Oh my goodness, water supply of the world. I mean, there's so many different places. It's probably a better way to ask the question. How much does all the world's water weigh? Okay, so that's a really, really, really big number. And that short ton's 2,000 pounds. That's hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions, hundreds of trillions, hundreds of quadrillions, quintillion. Quintillion, that's the world's water supply. So let's pop off a couple of those and look at that number right there. Heck, we probably don't have to pop off nearly that many. What would that number be? You know, quadrillion short tons. You know, trillion short tons of weight of water. We see what small amounts of water do. I mean, look at flash floods and what they can do. Imagine if this separated from impacts over here and this rose, and as it rose, that water would want to go somewhere around this direction, wash up over the land. You know, even here looks like massive melting of land. So there was massive heat. Did we get hit here as well? Maybe a fallout of this, things that got blasted into orbit and finally come back around and land. Boom, Bermuda lands here. Something hits here. Who knows? I mean, look at this. This looks like it could have just been absolutely annihilated as well. This whole entire area. Was this just fallout? I mean, look at that. That looks crater-ish. This whole area on the ocean floor. Could that be where we got hit? Or is this where the Earth birthed forth a giant volcano and blew forth, you know, magma to scorch the side of the Earth? Or is that an impact as well? A secondary territory, you know, is this fallout coming back around the Earth from being blasted? I mean, did it come from this direction? Over here? Where we got hit? Other interesting features you look at is, I mean, that kind of looks like, the structure looks like a blast wave. I don't know. We get hit in this area, create a giant hole, and been left the Earth with the echo of the blast wave forever etched throughout these areas here. I mean, is that why it carved away this section of land as water came and washed it back in, filled the hole from what hit us and created this blast wave? Did we have, I mean, look at the melting here. Is that why we have 4.4 billion year old stones right there on Australia's surface where we can just get them? Well, how deep is 4.4 billion years old? We know that in Russia we dug a hole 7.5 miles deep and found 2.7 billion year old stone, and that was crushed and compressed under 2 miles of ice. I mean, what kind of force would it take to remove that much earth? What kind of explosion would melt the surface to create something that could potentially flap into the sky 1,100 kilometers? Who knows? Did this lift into orbit and then flap back down to Earth and fling and create all this ejecta, splattering? Is this all just splattering of things coming back to Earth, splattering? And when these things hit, I mean, what did it do? Did it redirect blast waves? Did these blast waves hit massive, massive amounts of land and vitrify surfaces of megaliths in Peru and throw objects all the way around the Earth, creating weird anomalies, anomalous Bermuda Triangle? I mean, follow the path of Bermuda. You know, where does Bermuda go? Where did it come from? You know, why not take a straight line from it and see? You know, could it have been ejected off of something? Could Bermuda be a piece of the ice cap? What could it be? What was it flung? Maybe from here? I don't know. That's kind of far-reaching. Or maybe it settled from this side as the Earth cracked and groaned and spread here, and as it falls back together, who knows what busts free and falls and rolls down the hill. Is this the path of Bermuda as the world shakes right here, coming from somewhere in this area, and this is Bermuda? Or everything falling into one area towards Bermuda? I mean, look at all the different convergence of paths. You know, that, I mean, looks like ejecta and melted stone through here. This looks like ejecta, melted stone, possibly massive magma flow that burst forth from this crack and crevice from here. I mean, look at that. That's a convergence of everything. You know, and on the edge of that, you've got a potential crater. I mean, how big is that space right there? What is that? You know, if anything, it's fallback from what happened on the other side of the Earth. You know, nearly 100 kilometers, 90 kilometers right there. Just a big impact. I mean, a 90-kilometer impact melts through, who knows? Are there impacts over here as well? What is that? You know, what happened in these areas to create these massive, massive floods? You can see this direction as well. These are all one direction of flow, and it happened in a very short period of time because you can see the straight lines. And, you know, it was chaos, obviously. I'd love to hear what you guys think of my thoughts. You know, this is an interesting site as well. I've said Atlantis, 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 but, you know, this is a pretty interesting point too. If we travel all the way around to the exact opposite side of the world, you know, where this thing starts spinning on itself, look at that, right in this area right here, and the convergence point of multiple whirlpools of land, you know. Directly on the opposite side of the Earth. I mean, to create something like that, I could imagine something hitting hard enough. Whoops, went a lot too far there. I can imagine something hitting hard enough directly on the opposite side of the Earth to create rippling patterns on, you know, on the Earth. Not directly centered off of my thing. Maybe I'm off on my angle. Who knows? You know. What is that? I mean, it's there. It's not a meteor impact. They say it's from volcanic activity. It sure as shit looks like the world rippled and vibrated and created that. Maybe that's a center point of the axis of where it happened. Right from over here, near Vanuatu and New Caledonia, Fiji, Solomon Islands, near where the oldest stones in the world are found, 4.4 billion years old. Just look at the shape of it and look at what happened, and it just tells a story. You know, they said two different plates collided and created this, and I think it looks too much like a wave with the flowing of water to have been the impacting of different plates. Water is known to carve out swaths through everything. Water is used to cut everything. Water cuts stone under high pressure. We have tools that do it. Well, what about extreme weight of however many tons you want to put against there? You know, how much water was in that one place? There are seashells and sea life and, you know, all sorts of interesting things that shouldn't be at the highest peaks in the world, but there it is. And what would cause that if not the ocean emptying itself out of the basins of land from massive cataclysms and pushing itself across the land, reshaping the land? The whole world was reshaped in a massive, massive cataclysm. Now we just need to figure out the age of it, and the age seems to point to 12,800 years ago. You know, they say an impact here, but when you look at the world's cultures, I've said it in the past video, you know, these megalithic sites, all through these megalithic sites, look at the tombs and how large the tombs, they say they're Egyptian tombs. Well, Brian Forrester, you know, he says that these were repurposed. They were found from megalithic builders. And I believe that. I believe these megalithic builders saw this cataclysm coming. They knew it was coming, and they were advanced enough to create these structures in order to help prevent the annihilation of the human race, or the Caracas people, you know, whoever they were. But they were an advanced civilization, advanced enough to cut stone that we can't do and move stones that we can't move. And they came back and came out of hiding, the ones that could, the ones that did survive, the ones that picked the right places to build the tombs. Because when you go and look at the mummies of the Caracas people, here, the best place to do, I'm telling you right here, is going to this, you know, videos of Brian Forrester. He has such interesting things. Look at these videos. I'm going to mute that momentarily while we can get on over here. And let's go through and look at these. This is a wonderful video. He explains the Paracas people, and the differences in the DNA differences. And yeah, some of them did bind their skulls, but some of them did not bind their skulls. They were born that way. They have newborn fetuses. And, you know, these people, I'm looking for a specific point. Look at this. Some of them look huddled. This is something different. You know, it's a different type of being. And I think these people were advanced and they created these megalithic structures, and these are the ones that survive, because these are only a couple thousand years old, but imagine older than that. You know, imagine is that the population that, you know, did survive. They did dig these tunnels. You can look, and some of these people that were found in these caves, or not even cave systems, dugout systems, you know, were huddled and looked terrified. Go through this video and watch the elongated skulls of Paracas, Peru, and their DNA. This was released June 8th. It's interesting information. He has stuff that's just a couple days old in this video. He admits he's found out information. He talks about neuroscientists and people saying that these just are different. They're not human, but they interbred with human. And there's history and writings of this. These ancient cultures all around the world, you know. You see the Egyptians, and you see the people of Peru, and you see vitrified stone, and you see cave systems, deep cave systems, and you see ancient documents that have, you know, potential huge ramifications on the world, hidden away, the Dead Sea Scrolls, in caves. Why in caves? In order to protect the world's knowledge, in order to remember what the world was prior to this cataclysm, who we were. We as a human race, as people, have an intrinsic quality of curiosity to figure out our own past and where we came from. And I think we lost a large part of it. And if we can start over by looking at this and recognizing what it truly is an ancient cataclysm. We need to date this. We need to figure out when this happened. Did it all happen at once? You know, these are large gouges carved through the Pacific Ocean bed. These are gouges all done in one run, in high speed, some of them, and some of them, you know, in the Atlantic especially, just vibrational. This, who knows, were those created through vibrations of the settling of this piece of the world settling back in. You know, can you imagine the earthquakes? You know, why is it when you look at the dunes over Mauritania, you know, that you see as you get in closer and closer, these are obviously receding waters that created these dunes, because it was all done in one go. This isn't one, you know, giant windstorm that did this. And as you get closer and closer, you start to see the echoes of vibrations from an ancient earthquake that shook the world, the entire world. We can see the shape of it all through these thicker paths. And this could be flow, I don't know, but it looks like vibration as well. Massive amounts of vibration. You know, the world's shaking and sputtering and everything. The terror people must have felt, you know, the stories. That's why we hear of these stories of fire and brimstone and cataclysm. I mean, look at this. Does that not look like fire and brimstone strewn forth from the earth to splatter? You know, and this is just a small bit of it. We have all of this over here. That's true fire and brimstone. These explosions were large enough to completely wipe the surface of the earth clean and leave echoes of shockwaves. You know, look at that. Is that the leading edge of a shockwave? That's permanently etched into the surface of the earth. How big is that? I mean, just, you know, from here to here. Here, let's just pretend it happened right there. You know, 6,700 kilometers, I don't know, 6,000 kilometers. You know, did it originate from where we see the Vanuatu? That's a 10,000 kilometer. You know, can we measure that? Any scientists out there? Because we were saying it came from somewhere in this area. It's directly on the other side is Mauritania. What if we do one there? Okay, how far is this edge in a straight line? What do we run into? Blow through here. You know, massive amounts of high energy pushing back land, tearing through, blowing through land, oceans rocking back and forth to create areas, chunks large enough to create gouges. You know, is this a piece of the British Virgin Islands right there, or is this a piece of the earth that's older and thrown, you know, from this direction, or blown from under? You know, what came from this area? What do we have? Did it come down from here, just get rocketed across? That's roughly the same distance when you come to these edges of the coast. You know, could this be the leading edge of a blast wave? Could this be a massive impact? Is this why we see vitrification of stone on the surfaces of buildings? Are those buildings westward facing? Would it matter? I mean, why does this look crushed as you zoom in and pushed back, rippled? Like extreme pressure forced the edges of the land back. And that's what it looks like. It truly does. You know, and we go back to, again, the areas of the Solomon Sea and Vanuatu and Fiji. All of this area. And I think we were hit by a Shoemaker-Levy 9 type impact. And this is what happens when that hits. And chunks of the world blow off into orbit. And we get icy comets back eventually. You know, what is that? Look at this. Chunks of the world broke free at one point. The world broke free from itself at one point. You know, now we're getting to the other side of the world, and oh, there we are again. Right there. Directly over Mauritania and the Ricot structure, which looks like ripplings of the world. You know, maybe that wasn't Atlantis, but there is, interestingly enough, maybe Atlantis wasn't as old as it was thought. Maybe there's been multiple floods. Look at this. Maybe this is just something that happens. You know, they say there's a 5,000-year-old crater somewhere in here, only 5,000 years old, somewhere in Africa. So it's been popped. We've been hit. We continually get hit. We see it happen all the time. Look at these angles and the directions. You know, when you start imagining you're a stone traveling at high velocity around the Earth. Here, let's, not even that way. Let's go this way. Did we come from here? Wouldn't even look right coming in that direction. Let's spin it around if I can. I'm convinced. I mean, I come home and I relax and sit in front of this sometimes just to unwind, and I think, run different angles of the Earth and see what happens, you know. Did something sweep across? Look at this. Boom. You hit in that angle. Maybe. Or you come from the Earth slapping back forth, blowing fire and clearing this area and creating enough heat to melt rock and stone as the Earth vibrates and creates the rippling of what we see here and throughout Nevada and Reno. And gosh, look at painted, or is it the painted stones? No, painted stones of Arizona, maybe. Painted mountains. Look at this. You know, what could create this besides water and the earth shaking, vibrating? Look at these sharp peaks. What do you see that has sharp peaks other than vibration? You know, yeah, a bunch of water ran through here. I just don't think things are as old as they say they are. You know, such interesting things. And that's another thing, you know, I've thought about. The carvings in stones and the concentric circles that ancient civilizations show us. The concentric circles. Those look like craters, you know, and craters create heat. And look at these. What would cause the earth to jet forth at just that quickly, just raise? I don't think that's carved away. I think that's broken and raised. Look at these cliffs, the Grand Canyon. You know, maybe it was ripped asunder and torn apart and all done very quickly. You can click through just the beauty of the landscape and see, you know, yeah, there's a lot of aging and weathering and stuff. But what created the initial structure and how quickly was it done? When you zoom out and you zoom in and then you start getting close and you start looking at these pictures and you just drive through and you see the age of the land and how things are churned up and torn up. And they talk about even, you know, massive impact, 40 million, 65 million, whatever, years ago off the East Coast. And the, you know, they're saying that a giant wave 1,000 feet high moving, you know, very quickly caused basically what you're seeing in this area. Massive, massive wave. Well, what if that wave was bigger and created all of this? You know, what if it flew, the flood went across the whole entire land, you know, back and forth. It's ramblings of a mad lamb, everybody. I mean, what more can you ask for? Vitrified, burnt temples, knocked over structures that are so just gigantic. Biggest Egyptian statues. You know, you have, look at this. Oops. What do we got there? Colossi of Memnon. melted. Blown apart, melted. You have structures that are just complete. Look at them. What would cause that much heat? You know, and what I don't know what direction these are facing. I'm sure we can look it up. You know, why is this all in another language? Colossi of Memnon. Copy you. I don't feel like typing. I just would like to see which way they face. I'm looking at them and they seem to face... God, what direction is that? It's not a very... I guess they face... east-west. Looking that direction, which side is vitrified, you know? Is it the westward face that's vitrified on these? There we go. That's what I wanted. Seems to be the westward facing faces are... I mean, can you imagine fire coming across? The amount of water knocking shit over. Where's the largest obelisk? Oh, I can't spell either, by the way. What is this? I don't care. I just want to see the biggest. In the Aswan quarry, you have the Aswan obelisk, you know. I don't know. Watch some of Brian Forster's stuff. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that he shows that's knocked over, broken, melted, and I mean, just kind of following, going west here. I suppose it's not directly west. Let's see how far away that... Oh, no. I don't even know where those were. Hopefully they stayed marked. Libya. Or over by the Red Sea now. It's somewhere around here. Oh, there's Aswan. No. 6,000 kilometers. How big of a boom would you have to get to melt stone that far away? Who knows? Maybe when all the world's oceans were sputtering and spitting around, we were impacted again in this area, which created high heat and cleared the oceans and blew apart. Who knows? It was so cataclysmic. It was so much bigger than anybody can imagine. Just by looking at that. That alone explains so much of why we've lost human civilizations and other civilizations that we don't know, you know, everything about. We know they exist because we have the mummies of them. Elongated skulls of the Paracas people. And we have them coming out of Peru. And we have genetic connections up through the Black Sea. I mean, it seems like a kind of protected area. Maybe they moved here to be protected by the ice. Look at that. Is that an impact that maybe melted a lot of stuff? You know, why does Italy look like a melted puddle? Was this always shaped like this? Look at all this strange circular activity and volcanic activity that's on this side of the world and through here, and talking about volcanoes exploding and taking out ancient civilizations. And you have, where is Pompeii? Italy. You know, imagine the fires. You know, and it follows right along. Moses parting the Red Seas, you know. know, there's a chain of probably volcanoes right through this area. I'm sure it is. Wipes out ancient civilizations. And this wiped out the most advanced ancient civilization Earth has ever known. I'm just rambling. Go check it out, everybody. Go check out Brian Forrester. Go pull up Google Maps or Google Earth. Run around the world and let your imagination run free. See what you can see. Zoom in and zoom out. You know, it's amazing the damage that you can find, the scars. Just follow the paths. Did this crack open and help melt the ice of the northern ice cap? Because that sure shit looks like fire and lava and blowing forth and just charring the earth. These look like just massive, massive areas of the earth that just erupted. This looks like a torrent of, like it was just flung about, pushed around. This looks like the leading edge of a wave that blew across, maybe blew around and washed. Where does this come from? Right through here. Look at all this land. Salt water, lakes and shit probably all through here, I bet you. You know, what is this? Is this a salt bed? Etosha pan. What is the Etosha pan? Etosha. Is it salt? Look at that. The Etosha pan is a large salt pan. Lots and lots and lots of salt. Why is there that much salt inland? You know, why is there sea life? Seashells, Mount Everest. I think this is completely incorrect. How did fossils end up on top of Mount Everest? How old are the fossils? Maybe it is older, but I think that who knows? I don't know how old it is, but that wasn't necessarily all tectonic activity. You know, maybe the crushing of this pushing together and forcing here with water, forcing the rest, but that is too much shaped like water. Let's look at some pictures of beaches. Tsunami. Oops. Again. Can't type. Fat fingers. What does it look like? Obviously devastation. Now, well, we know what oceans do. They push in. They create this shape. Look at it. When it runs into land, that's what it does. Creates all of this shape all through these pictures. Now let's look over here. I know there's a way to spin this easier. I can never figure it out. Never works for me, right? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Is that a... It's a pretty interesting view there. There we go. Look at that. Hard earth, sand, large, vast desert of sand here. Let's see what it looks like. Vast desert of sand. Hard stone rocks. If I didn't know that was, you know, Earth, and the Himalayas and all of that, that could confuse me for that. I think the whole world got confused as to what happened here. Look at the Himalayas. Look at all of that. What is that? Why is it pushed? Land looks crumpled and pushed and undulating. And why is there so many paths of water receding? Large gouges. And then lower lands. Look at this area here. Let's see if we can find anything interesting in these pictures. Let's just look at beaches. Look at this. What do you think caused that? Where is that? I have no idea where this one's from. Probably visit the page. I'm rambling on, ramblings of a mad lamb, showing you guys beaches. That didn't turn out the way I wanted, but you get my point. Look at this. I want to know where that is. It looks like a bunch of rock just melted and pushed around like that. Like these areas here, just things pushed, shoved while they were they're huge objects. Anyways, that's more ramblings of a mad lamb. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please like, share, comment below. I would like to get some input of some people a heck of a lot smarter than me, some scientists, some geologists. I'd love to see the Brian Forresters and the Graham Hancocks of the world and the Randall Carlsons, the people that actually study the Younger Dryas period and potential of impacts, and let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from anybody that's got some input on this. Tell me what you think. Tell me if my ideas are completely bonkers, or is that the site of the world's biggest craters, where the Pacific Ocean was just blown clean and left trenches. Thanks for hanging with me, guys. We'll see you on the next one.